Judge Lyman had already granted Blake Lively's legal team an extension until February 14th, Valentine's Day, but that still wasn't enough for them. Pushing their luck, they returned with yet another request, this time asking for an extension until March 5th. However, Judge Lyman wasn't having it. They had already been given extra time, and now they wanted even more. Blake's legal team attempted to justify the request by claiming they were bringing in additional witnesses to testify against Justin Baldoni. One of the key witnesses they hoped to call was Jenny Slate, who had co-starred with Baldoni in It Ends With Us, playing his sister. Jenny was a known supporter of Blake and had previously spoken in her defense, dismissing the allegations against her as baseless. As Blake Lively's castmate and friend, I fully support her as she takes action against those who orchestrated an attack on her reputation. Blake is a leader, a loyal friend, and a trusted source of emotional support for so many of us. What has been revealed about the attacks on her is deeply disturbing and incredibly harmful, Jenny stated. I commend her bravery and I stand with her. At first, it seemed like Jenny was fully on board, ready to back Blake's claims in court. But when it came time to testify, she shocked everyone, especially Blake. Jenny allegedly denied any direct involvement and distanced herself from the case entirely. Despite her reluctance, Blake's legal team still attempted to subpoena her, believing she had experienced uncomfortable encounters with Baldoni that could strengthen their argument.
Actually planning to file an amended complaint in their lawsuit against Justin Baldoni and others. According to her attorney, Michael Gottlieb, that is going to include new claims from Blake Lively, and they're going to be bringing this lawsuit against new defendants. Parties, of course, meeting for the first time in court today. It was about a 90-minute hearing.
The same tactic that they're doing over and over again of trying to manipulate the courts to get what they want.
However, many speculated this was simply a tactic to manipulate the case by bringing more women into the lawsuit to make Blake's claims seem more credible. When this strategy didn't work, Blake's team scrambled for a new approach, and that's when they requested yet another extension. Judge Lyman wasn't buying it. When he questioned why they suddenly needed more time, Blake's legal team gave a long-winded and convoluted response, claiming they needed additional time to add new parties to the lawsuit. One of those parties was Jed Wallace and his company, Street Relations. According to Blake's team, Wallace had filed a separate 10-page lawsuit in a Texas federal court that supposedly overlapped with their case, making it necessary to delay proceedings. At first glance, it sounded reasonable, but things weren't that simple. Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, was fully prepared. He came in swinging, armed with receipts and literal documentation proving that Blake's team had previously refused to grant an extension when Baldoni's team requested one back in January, during the devastating LA wildfires. While Baldoni's team was dealing with a real crisis, Blake's legal team refused to give them any leeway. Friedman exposed their hypocrisy, stating, "Despite the Lively party's inexplicable refusal to grant an extension when we requested one during the Los Angeles wildfires, we have no objection to their request now." Essentially, he made it clear that if Blake's team was granted an extension, then Baldoni's team would also require an extension, pushing their own response deadline to April 15th. Baldoni's legal team, represented by Wayfarer Legal, expressed little concern over Blake's team getting extra time. They essentially said, "Take your extension, we don't even care." But they also made it clear that any extra time for Blake's team meant extra time for them too, ensuring a fair playing field. Fair is fair, right? But Brian Friedman wasn't finished yet. He had one more revelation that sent shockwaves through the courtroom. With a calm, calculated tone, he exposed a major misrepresentation by Blake's team. They had been trying to blame Jed Wallace for the delay, making it seem as though his legal action was the reason they needed more time. But Friedman wasn't about to let that narrative slide. He pulled out the receipts, revealing that it was actually Blake who had filed legal action against Wallace first, on January 21st, a full 2 weeks before Wallace even responded with his lawsuit. What the Lively party conveniently failed to mention, Friedman stated, is that the ongoing litigation in Texas was initiated by Ms. Lively herself. She filed legal action against Mr. Wallace in Texas State Court on January 21st, roughly 2 weeks before he responded with his federal lawsuit. The audacity. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. It was as if Blake's team had been caught red-handed, trying to pull a fast one on the judge, and Brian Friedman was not about to let them get away with it. Judge Lyman was not amused. Without hesitation, he denied their request for a month-long extension. Instead, he granted them a mere extra day to submit their response. One day, Blake's team had tried to play the system, and it backfired spectacularly. The look of defeat on Blake Lively's legal team was impossible to miss. Slumped shoulders, downcast eyes, and the unmistakable realization that they were running out of options. Judge Lyman made it crystal clear. Blake's team had failed to present any valid reason for yet another delay, and he wasn't going to let them drag this case out any further. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse for them, they absolutely did. Remember how Blake's legal team had desperately tried to hit Brian Friedman with a gag order to prevent him from speaking to the media? Well, that move backfired spectacularly. The court swiftly shut it down. Nice try, but no. The ruling meant Friedman was free to continue discussing the case publicly, exactly what Blake's team had been trying to avoid. Imagine attempting to control the narrative, only for the court to hand a microphone to your most relentless adversary. Blake's team had hoped to silence Friedman, but instead the court effectively gave him the green light to keep exposing every inconvenient truth. Then came another massive blow, one that turned this legal battle into an even bigger public spectacle. Justin Baldoni's legal team had just launched a website dedicated entirely to the case, a move that left Blake's side scrambling. Over the weekend, Baldoni's team dropped the bombshell, unveiling a newly launched site featuring an amended legal complaint. A meticulously compiled 168-page timeline of events, never-before-seen text messages allegedly exchanged between Blake and Baldoni. But this wasn't just a repository of legal documents, it was a full-blown digital exposé. Receipts, evidence, and footage were now laid out for the public to see. Anyone following the case could examine the facts for themselves, effectively dismantling Blake's team's attempts to keep details buried behind closed doors. Suddenly, this case wasn't just being fought in the courtroom, it was playing out in the court of public opinion, and Blake's team was losing ground fast. To make matters worse, Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds, was now being pulled deeper into the controversy. One alleged text from Reynolds to Baldoni resurfaced, showing just how excited he initially was about "It Ends With Us." In the message, he reportedly wrote, "This is going to be incredible. I happen to adore you, Justin." At the time, it was a friendly and supportive message, but given the current lawsuit, it now carries a completely different weight. Blake's legal team, already struggling under the pressure of multiple failed strategies, made a desperate attempt to have the website taken down. They pleaded with the court, arguing that Baldoni's team should not be allowed to publicly release evidence like this. But once again, the court wasn't buying it. Their reasoning was simple. Blake's team had already taken their battle to the public. They had used major media outlets, including the New York Times, to frame their side of the story. They were perfectly fine engaging in the court of public opinion when it suited them. So why should Baldoni's team be silenced now that they were fighting back? At this point, Blake's legal team must be wondering how much worse things can get. Every move they've made has backfired. Every attempt to regain control has slipped through their fingers. And with each failed strategy, the reality of losing this lawsuit becomes more apparent. And let's not forget what's at stake: $400 million. That's not just a painful loss, it's career-shattering. Even for Hollywood A-listers like Blake and Ryan, a financial hit that massive could force a complete reassessment of their future projects, endorsements, and investments. This lawsuit is no longer just about legal fees and reputation. It's about potential financial ruin. At this rate, the real question isn't just whether Blake will lose, it's how much more her team can handle before completely cracking under the pressure. With every ruling, every new piece of evidence, and every strategic misfire, this case is slipping further out of their control. What do you guys think? Is there any way for Blake's team to turn this around, or is this the beginning of the end for her legal battle? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any updates.